Hi, this is Terry Brock with TerryBrock.com, reporting for Business Journals. Technology is exciting, and there's so much happening right now. It's almost like, wow, we live in a science fiction world. And I want to share with you an interview that I had with a guy named Tom Edwards. Tom is the Chief Digital Officer with a marketing company, digital marketing particularly, out in Dallas, Texas, called Epsilon. And Tom went to CES, that used to be called the Consumer Electronics Show, now just called CES from the Consumer Technology Association. An amazing event, and I got a chance to talk with him about what's going on with digital marketing. Now, if you're in marketing, you use digital marketing to get your word out with social media, with video, with all the things that we're doing now. You want to listen to this. He's not only talking about that, but also about virtual reality, which is changing our world today. 3D everything, how we're going from 3D photographs and 3D printing and more there as well. New forms of computing like neural input that we'll have. He's talking about this, holograms, and even more. This is worth your time. Sit down, take a look at what's going on, and take a look at not only your future, but what's happening now as we talk to Tom Edwards from Epsilon about digital marketing today. Hi, I'm Terry Brock with Business Journals, and today we're seeing marketing changing like never before. Digital marketing is amazing what you can do with it today. There's a lot of good. There's also some confusion, and to kind of clear up some of that confusion, we've got someone joining us today, Tom Edwards, who is joining us now from his office out there in Dallas, and he's going to be talking to us about what's happening. He just got back from the CES show put on by the Consumer Technology Association. And Tom, thanks for being with us today.
Terry, thank you very much. It's great to join you today. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, it's good to have you here, and now can't let you get away without first finding out, okay, you went to CES, and guys like you and me, we've been to these all the time, with gobs of people in technology. CES is one of the best. It's got so many new things out there, and if I had to pin you down to just like 3 or 4, maybe 5 things that just kind of really dazzled you there, what would they be that you saw at CES this year in 2016?
Well, Terry, there are basically 6 key territories that were very interesting for me. I saw, everything from, you look at virtual reality and you look at the consumerization of that, with the release of Oculus Rift coming up. And there were a number of actual providers, everything from full body sensors to create kind of immersion within the experiences or like depth within it, as well as new service providers. So you look at enterprise ready solutions. So you look at Lowe's and their HoloRoom and their partnership with Markson Labs. You look at the ability to basically take and align and leverage virtual reality on behalf of driving even commerce with contextual hotspots. That was very impressive to me. Another area was, I was very impressed with the amount of 3D, just everything. So that was very surprising. It's kind of the progression of 3D printing, 3D scanning, different use cases that are applicable to various verticals and industries. That was incredibly impressive as well, especially looking at the combination of virtual reality with 3D printing from a medical perspective. That was very interesting. Another one was actually going beyond screens, so new forms of computing. So there was one in particular called BrainCo, and it was a neural input device where you could actually control whether it's IoT sensors or medical prosthetics with your mind. So that was incredibly impressive.
Wow, that sounds like something right out of science fiction with the IoT, of course, Internet of Things, and being able to do that. That is amazing.
Yeah, it was very, very impressive. In addition to actual holograms that are actually there just in 3 dimensions, that was incredibly impressive, potentially high impact for marketers as well. And then you start looking at accessories that really empower consumers. CES is all about the latest and greatest technology, but one thing that's kind of underpinned the last few years is actually the ability for the reason that there's been so much progression from a digital marketing standpoint is that you look at, way back in 2007 with the launch of the original iPhone, that was transformational. Why? Because it enabled consumers. It consolidated all these various devices. So what we saw at CES are this kind of progression towards now immersive experiences. We touched on VR, but now there are accessories that will allow consumers to have, whether it's a 3D photographs from their phone through like a technology called Bevel, or even moving further, there's a new camera that'll allow consumers to create virtual reality experiences directly from a new camera device. So accessories that empower were a big, big player there as well. And that's going to help kind of shepherd in the adoption of VR. Because the key thing about VR, it's got to be portable, but it also has to be able to where consumers can easily create content for it to make it relevant for them. It's not enough for it to be just this kind of passive experience.
I like
And
that. I think that's really important. That ties in with what we're seeing with much of marketing today. It's not just you blasting your message out, and that's the term they use, blasting a message out. People want to interact with it. So you're seeing that also with 3D and virtual reality.
absolutely, absolutely. That's going to be a very, very key area because people have to essentially see themselves in it. And that's, I'm going to touch on that a little bit later when we start talking about some of the shifts and changes in marketing, and especially around content marketing that we're seeing. But to wrap up the CES portion, two other areas were the smart home. So there's this arms race happening right now to be the hub of the connected home. Because to me, that's where it's very important whenever you begin to see the amount of data that's going to be created, all of the systems that are interconnected with one another. And from a marketing perspective, how can you inject yourself and your messaging into that new ecosystem that's going to be automated in a lot of ways and removing the consumer from some of the decision process. So that's another interesting one. Lowe's had their Iris system on display. LG had their Smart Think technology, which was similar to Amazon Echo. And the final area that was really impressive to me was the progression in intelligent robotics. So another area that I see a lot of application for marketing moving forward is going to be through this combination of both what's called emotive robotics and artificial intelligence. And those are kind of two key areas that are going to advance. You know, I ultimately think that the connected home is going to be run by some form of artificial intelligence. You look at like the Jibo robot that's being developed right now, that has that emotive nature to where it can recognize you, respond and react to you. So I think those are things that are coming in the near future that are going to be very interesting, have very interesting marketing applications from either a content delivery standpoint or just another way in which to garner data from consumers. But those were the 6 areas that were the most interesting.
All right, well, that is impressive, and we expect to be impressed by CES, and every year we're even more impressed. It's like, okay, what can they do to top this? And they continue to do that. Well, let's take that into the real world for marketers that are watching this. Someone who's, say, a small business or an entrepreneur or even salespeople that are really their own business person, and looking at technology that's out there. There's a lot that sometimes can be a little overwhelming. And what we want to do is take a look at those particular technologies that you see that are working now and let's say long-term into the rest of this year. That's long-term technology. And what is not working that was working before. If you had to kind of look at those in an overview, what would you say would be some that are not working anymore and those that you see are working and marketers should be involved in?
You know, the last few years, there's been a rapid evolution, even tied to, let's take social media marketing for just a moment. We'll start there. So it used to be a year or two ago, it was all about personification of your brand. You wanted to be able to have kind of a witty conversation with your consumers. It was all about, you know, putting content out there that was fun and engaging, and that engagement actually drove an action. You could increase your ability to drive organic reach through that content. Because there's been such a dynamic shift from the publisher standpoint, so Facebook in particular, you start looking at from a business perspective, it's less about posting content that's, you know, personified and witty, and more about creating content that can be targeted and contextually relevant to the consumer at that particular moment in time. Whether that's the targeting tools or using kind of the data that you have around those consumers, that's really been a huge dynamic shift that's impacted a lot of organizations, and some brands in particular still are focusing in on that personification, even though the reach associated with that is incredibly low. So that's an area that I've seen. Another thing that's incredibly important is having the ability to connect physical with digital. So that's another kind of key area where now the consumer is in such control of the messaging that they receive. And attention is such a key, it's almost like a scarce resource now, where content becomes that currency in how you connect with those consumers. So what you have to consider is that it's more about consistency of your messaging across all of these various channels and making sure that the content that you're distributing, regardless of the platform, is contextually relevant to those individuals. It's a really, really key message now because you have limited opportunities to make those connections. So I see that as a key piece of it. And the third area, and one of the key reasons why I joined Epsilon, it's really about aligning of data with the creative process. Having that ability to segment, understand behavioral, attitudinal, transactional data has been one of the key fundamental shifts over the past few years, to where now that we have access to this, you know, we actually have the ability then to create, you know, predictive models based on that behavior and influence our creative in a way that we can scale that, whether it's through programmatic or dynamically optimizing creative, and reaching individuals in a way that before it was all about that broad, broadcast of a message. Now you can get incredibly relevant from a personal perspective in connecting with that consumer, whether it's email or social or digital or on-site or wherever it may be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's not a matter of the word blasting that email message out and saying one message for everyone. It's really got to be contextually sensitive. It must be in tune with their needs in answering what they want. And it's like, that's what we want when we're out there looking for something. I find it strange that too many marketers and too many salespeople think, oh, the world works differently when I'm blasting a message.
Right.
They're going to listen to my message that I blast, but I sure don't want to get any blasted at me. But I like what you're saying there. It makes sense. Well, a lot of times we're going to use tools that are going to be involved in marketing and selling to help us to be more productive. At CES, you see a lot of those. They're all over the place. I'd be curious as to you, Tom Edwards. You're a technology guy. You're working with media. You're digital marketing. You're doing that. What kind of tools do you consider your must-have tools that help you to get the job done?
It's interesting. So I look at this less from tools and more about partnerships. I'm a big believer in aligning strategic partnerships because that's the opportunity that I'm going to have to basically create first of its kind innovation. So whether it's leveraging a partnership with like a Facebook, a Twitter, or a Snapchat, or leveraging other, tools that may be out there, that's what I really focus in on when it comes to how I define strategy, where I look for new opportunities. That's a key area for me. But I think one of the other key things to consider too is there's been a massive entertainment shift over the past few years. And one of the core tools that I leverage is actually the ability to co-create content with key influencers and makers and creators, whether that's across these, multi-channel networks that are supported by Google, or whether it's through, startups like a Social Native. I think those are kind of some of the go-to tools because a lot of it, it's less about that personification of the brand. And it's more about how can we create trust or create a way in which that, our message is being delivered in a way or through a partnership that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm thinking in terms of video. I've used a lot of video myself. And matter of fact, you are using a tool called Zoom. I'm not associated with it. I'm a customer of theirs and pay them money, but really like it. And it seems good. I'd be interested. You seem like in collaboration, that's kind of what we're doing here with video. Do you see video being used more and more for collaboration?
I do. You look at services like Blab, you look at Periscope, you look at Meerkat, you look at some of the other more streaming-centric services. One thing that I like that's happening now over time is that they're adding more asynchronous capabilities to the platforms. So you actually have a little bit of time. You don't have to be tuned in at that exact moment in time to capture or participate in a feed. I think that's a really important part for some of these collaboration tools to really begin adding additional value because you want to be able to reuse some of the content that's being created from those sessions to further connect with your consumer base. I think that's a really key one.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's very important because I do a lot with Google Hangouts. Yeah. And I find that Google Hangouts works really well. I use an add-on called Webinar Jam Studio. Kind of works with that. And it gives you a lot of benefit. And I think there's unique benefits for being there live. You can ask the expert these questions. Hey, what do you think? And not only in text, but now with the new versions of these, you can actually be right there on the screen, anyone that's there. But then also as, I can't make next Tuesday at 3 because I've got this other meeting. No problem. It is recorded. And I think that's good. So you see it's a combination of the two in what we're doing with video?
I absolutely do. I mean, the beautiful thing about some of these streaming services is that you can provide a different perspective for your consumer base, whether it's kind of more behind the scenes type of content or, creating live events, covering live events, whatever it may be. One of the other technologies that actually I'm very, very interested in is heading into 2016 is really around interactive video that allows kind of a nonlinear journey for consumers. So a tool like Interlude is one that's very, very interesting.
Well, I've heard of that. Spell that for us, please.
Yeah, it's Interlude, Interlude. And what it actually does, it's a highly portable HTML5 contained experience to where you can connect a number of kind of linear video assets into a journey that the consumer controls. It's almost like choose your own adventure. So that's an area in 2016 that I see that's going to continue to evolve. itself. Obviously,
Whoa, Nelly. Yeah, you combine that with virtual reality. Woohoo.
yes.
Yeah, why stay on planet Earth when I can go to that?
Exactly, exactly. And the beautiful thing about it is you can create that content and you can use it in a number of form factors. You can embed that into a website. You can use that as, part of an ad unit. So there are a number of kind of ways in which you could leverage that. But the beautiful thing is, it gives the consumer, it's empowering the consumer because they're in control of the messaging. Instead of dictating, which specific linear video they should be following, they have a choice in the matter. And I think choice is going to be key in 2016.
Okay, give me an example of how we might be able to use that. Someone's getting interlude, and say if I owned a clothing store, maybe a men's clothing store, and small, I want to get in traffic, increase people coming into my store. What could I do with something like interlude to involve my customers and more prospective customers?
Absolutely. So on the front end, you could have different segments of consumers that you're targeting, and they each have different behaviors and they may have different affinities. So you can actually craft your advertising message to lead into the different aspects of the experience with an interlude that may be the most contextually relevant for that individual. So going back to your clothing example, if my online behavior shows that I have a propensity, I'm looking for, say, a suit, the experience may be more tied to aligning me into that section or that category, say from a video standpoint, leading from that advertisement that can then direct me directly into a single experience that can drive a call to action from within it. So, and then it also gives me the opportunity to continue to explore without leaving the experience. So that's one tool I think that's going to continue to progress in 2016.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I can see some tools like that coming about and be important. Well, now, another thing that people are going to deal with in the realm of marketing and digital is often we're overwhelmed with this. You saw it at CES. Matter of fact, you're coming. I really appreciate you being here. For those of you watching, Tom is here on Monday after the massive CES, which I think means you don't get any sleep. You just keep going all the time. So, Tom, we appreciate you being here. But I'm thinking, how do you overcome the overwhelm of all the technology and find those tools out of the 400 bazillion, I think that's the exact number, 400 bazillion that are out there, the ones that are going to work best for you? What would you say to that marketer that wants to find something, but they're a little bit overwhelmed?
I think it all comes back again to what your goal is with the consumer and where your brand is in terms of the level of sophistication tied to digital marketing. There are some groups that can really focus in on being extremely cutting edge and innovative to drive, new experimentation with new technologies, and that's fine. The expectation of an immediate return on that isn't necessarily there, but not every organization has the benefit of driving that forward. So again, it comes back to, where you stand currently in, say, the digital marketing continuum of sophistication. If you're focusing in on the basics of, search and advertising and, content creation, all the way through to then how you're leveraging co-creation of content or integration of sponsorships or ultimately the curation of user-generated content. A lot of that really dictates where, from a digital marketing perspective, that you need to kind of focus in on, because there are different territories that can create value versus, just chasing the next shiny object. So when I'm working with organizations, I always look at, from a digital transformation standpoint, it always comes back to assessing where your current organization is, in conjunction with the rest of the competitive landscape, what your goals as a business are. And then I begin to align it with the strategic territories of what's available from a digital perspective. And once you do that, and you're making sure that you're aligning your business goals with what technology can actually help to drive and achieve that, that's where we really start seeing some of the true value created through some of the digital marketing tools versus just doing something for the sake of having a shiny tool.
Yeah, very important. Tom, whenever I get a chance to be with someone who's a genius in marketing like you, and you're helping a lot of people, I know your company and Epsilon, the agency, you do a lot there in many other areas, helping clients and helping your clients to do that. But I'm also curious as to what you are consuming, what you're reading and watching. So if you don't mind, opening up the door here a little bit and share with us, if you can say, okay, I must read these blogs, or I must visit these sites, or these video channels I've got to see, or this podcast. What content do you find must consume for you, Tom Edwards?
For me, a lot of it really starts with Twitter. I use Twitter as a way to just curate, there are certain individuals that I'll follow and track, and then, content that's being created. And what I really try to do is I try to absorb this content and then be able to then take and craft my own opinion about it. So I create a lot of content myself. And so a lot of that's on my blog at, blackfin360.com. And so I try to take and assess it, but I consume information from everywhere. I think the key thing is, whether it's a Mashable, a Digiday, Momentology, Adweek, whatever it may be, it's important that, you look at it through the lens of aligning whatever the topics are with, again, the territories, and then begin to make associations. And that's really what I do, on a daily basis. So that's kind of the key piece there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Any particular podcasts that you listen to that you like?
There are a number of them that I follow, but not necessarily from a digital marketing perspective. I've been impressed with what GE has done with The Message. So I'm all about, some of the branded podcast examples and how that can be leveraged, in 2016 on behalf of brands. And so I know there are a number of instances to where, podcast listenership is skyrocketing. And it is an area that I actually included in my 2016 trend recap for a number of the brand partners that I have as well. So branded podcasts obviously are a key asset. But for me, it really comes down to a lot of it doesn't necessarily come from, external sources. A lot of it comes directly from the vendors or directly from the partners. And one of the key areas is if you can either align yourself with individuals that have relationships with the platforms or with the platforms directly, that's where you probably get the most benefit, because you get deeper kind of insight into what the platforms actually are, how it can apply to your business. So, you can either work directly with the publishers, or you can work with somebody like myself, who has those relationships that can then translate that into the value that can be created for your business.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you key in on the people. Matter of fact, it's interesting that echoes what we heard from Joe Fernandez when my partner Gina Carr and I interviewed him. He, of course, was the CEO and co-founder of Klout, and we wrote the book Klout Matters. And so we had a chance to talk with him, and he said that today we're in a world where it used to be where you have your page and it was your web page. It was really important. Now it's more like you talk about with Twitter or your homepage there. He said that Barack Obama's, now nothing political here, but just the President of the United States Twitter page is more important than the front page of the New York Times. And you think, whoa, yeah, what the president says or a key official, whoever that would be, is far more important than even as important as the New York Times is or Dallas Morning News or whatever we're going to look at in a paper. I think that we have seen a real shift in where we are. And so also I want to kind of build on top of what you said there as we kind of close it out. I could be here with you for hours. Tom, you got a wealth of information on that. And before I let you go, even before I ask the last question, how can someone get in touch with you if they say, this guy's got some good ideas, we really need to get in touch with them? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
There are a couple easy ways to do it. So my email address is tom.edwards@epsilon.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at BlackFin360. And so I
say that again real slowly and spell it out, because we might have people listening with native English is not their native language.
Absolutely. So my Twitter handle is at BlackFin360. That's BLACKFIN 360. And I publish a lot of content or industry commentary. So if you follow me there, you'll be able to see the latest commentary, whether it's talking about Snapchat's ad API or Facebook's Q3 earnings and what that means on the future. So there's a number, or original content. My recap of CES is actually going to be publishing out today. So there's a lot of content that's there, and follow me. And if you have any questions, you can email me or follow me there.
Excellent. Well, now, before we let you go, I'm going to reach through the screen here, twist your arm a little bit, because we got a good marketer here. We want to take advantage of that. We're going to say, I want you to get out that crystal ball. I think you have it under your desk there, your crystal ball, and rub it really well. And we're going to look long-term of where we're going with technology for like the next 12 months. That is long-term in technology. So what do you see are some of the key factors, and not just, well, there's this gadget or that, but rather we might say that, but what should we do? What should we as marketers start doing, and how should we start thinking in order to take advantage of those trends? What do you think?
Absolutely. So number one thing to focus on from a general marketing perspective is, what do immersive experiences potentially mean for my brand? So you see this shift towards virtual reality, you see this shift towards augmented reality, and this new concept called mixed reality, which is a combination of the two. For me, the future is really going to be involved in kind of holographic computing. So I'm very impressed with what Microsoft is doing with their HoloLens technology. Being able to then actually take and digitally overlay holograms into the real world that you can actually interact with is a key transformational technology that's on the horizon. So that's a key area. But again, it comes back to what's your core business objective? How can you leverage immersive content to benefit your consumers, if at all? Understanding the difference between a passive immersive experience and an active one. A lot of what I saw at CES were a lot of sensors that could help you then, create more connection with the experiences that you're having. Facebook's investing heavily in Oculus. Mark Zuckerberg is saying it's the next evolution of computing. That's a key area to focus on over the course of the next year, in addition to some of the other things we talked about, such as emotive robotics and some of the others.
Yeah, it's a wonderful world ahead. A lot of good there. And it's kind of nice. One thing I love about CES is it's much more optimistic. You think about it, you hear the news and it's like, this bad thing happened. Oh, did you hear what happened over there? And this bad. And yeah, we need to be aware of those things. But I love CES. You've got literally thousands of people. I think, what was it, 175,000 or something there this year, or somewhere around that number. People from all over the world, many different languages, many different countries, all doing business, cooperating and showing new. It was like, this thing is coming. This one is there. This is going to solve this problem. I think that's the way the world should really work, where you get people from all over. I've been there many years. I've never once seen a fight. Never. No. I mean, maybe there have been, but it's like, people don't do that. They're there about making money. What can we do to help you? You're helping me. I'll help you. Ooh, this is a good thing. Let me talk about your thing. And what you're doing, Tom, I really appreciate. You're helping people to see what's available. And we really appreciate you taking time to help us on this. And one more time, for those of you that would want to get in touch with you, Tom, what's the best way, again, for them to reach you?
Again, it's either through email at tom.edwards, EDWARDS, at epsilon, EPSILON.com, or my Twitter handle is blackfin360, BLACKFIN360.com. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for being with us. And for those of you joining us, I'm Terry Brock. Take these ideas that Tom has. He's really giving you some good information. This might be one you're going to go back and watch again with pen and paper in hand or note-taking device of choice. And you start typing away, because this can then help you in your career and help you put some money in your bank account. I'm Terry Brock. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Terry.